If you're a firefighter, this was an intense situation.
The governor has declared a disaster emergency in Suffolk County.
It was amazing but terrifying to find out that the fire is above us.
Firefighters are lined up along Sunrise Highway, almost like a wall.
The heat felt as far as a half a mile away. You know something really big is happening.
The West Hampton High School had to be evacuated itself.
This is like being in hell.
You were just in smoke, you were in heat, you were in soot.
Our hearts and our prayers are with them. We applaud the efforts of all those people on Long Island.
I was on Sunrise Highway. It literally went over me.
We had something that was similar to what you'd see happening out west all the time was happening right here in our own backyard.
Sunrise Highway, which tonight at least seemed to be the biggest battleground.
The Pine Barrens sits atop the greatest quantities of the purest drinking water anywhere on Long Island and the greatest diversity of plant and animal species anywhere in the state of New York.
The Pine Barrens is a really special ecosystem. It actually was a big part of the middle of Long Island. We only have a small part of the Pine Barrens that are now preserved. Long Island sits on top of a tremendous aquifer, many of them. It's glacial water underneath from when the glaciers came through. We're a sandbar floating on top of a glacier, and right smack in the middle were the Pine Barrens.
The Pine Barrens of Long Island are considered to be a third forest preserve. We have over 106,000 acres in this area now, and it is preserved now in perpetuity.
The Pine Barrens Society was created by three very prescient high school and then college kids who went through these forests that had no trails. They carved their own trails, they studied, they lectured, they educated the people about them. They knew something had to be done to protect a portion of them, or all of them were going to be lost.
Harmony in the Pines at South Haven County Park in Yaphank, where Governor Cuomo will sign the Pine Barrens Protection Act.
The Pine Barrens Protection Act was a life changer for Eastern Long Island. It was the first time we had set up and said, we can't just have this stuff happen. We need to have a plan. We need to set aside the boundaries, be far enough away that we're not harming local communities. We need to have people who will manage parks and recreation in a responsible way.
It's good, it's right, and no quarrel, and no dispute, and no equivocation. With sureness, I go to bed tonight, having signed the bill and made it a law, knowing that I did a right thing.
There's only two places that we know of in the United States that have the Pine Barrens, and one is Long Island, and one is New Jersey. So it's a really special ecosystem. Mother Nature knew what she was doing when she set that up.
The War of the Woods is over, and the people of Long Island have won. Today, Long Island obtains a first-rate national park quality nature preserve and a progressive new plan for future development that will serve as a model for this nation.
The act was established in 1993. There's been significant acquisition of vacant land particularly in the core preservation area to further preserve and protect that area. The Central Pine Barrens Commission is a 5-member body. They oversee land use and land management in the Central Pine Barrens. They have a multifaceted role, reviewing development projects, but also in charge of helping to conduct stewardship and manage the natural resources that we have here, and also trying to manage the forest in a way that sustains the forest and also helps to minimize the advent of wildfires. Back in 2018, it actually received a 5-year grant from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to establish a prescribed fire program. We have a number of staff who are trained in conducting prescribed fire, and we're also preparing burn plans.
Pitch pine is supposed to go on fire. It's periodically done naturally by Mother Nature to release the pine seeds, and then the pine forest can regenerate.
They were usually caused by lightning strikes, not by human activity in any way.
By doing prescribed fire under controlled conditions, it also reduces fuel loads in our forests.
The Pine Barrens have been burning for thousands of years, and they're not going to stop. So we do need to understand how to manage them. And if you can have 100 small fires, then you don't get a 100-year fire.
So we had 21 days without rain, 21 straight days without rain through August, which allowed the woods to dry out tremendously.
The Pine Barrens area is so dry that driving a car through it or driving a dirt bike or anything like that can cause something to spark.
Humidity levels had dropped precipitously, well below 20%, and the vegetation that fuels a wildfire had dried out significantly, and on top of that we had significant winds.
The winds are gusting at incredible speeds here, and the embers flying in the air is just causing a disaster for firefighters here.
The conditions that week were these north-northwest winds sustained at 25 miles an hour with gusts to 35, and low humidities. The humidity the day of the Sunrise fire was 17%.
There had been no rain, and the accumulation in the portions that burned of leaves on the forest floor were bound to create a tremendous blaze.
These Pine Barrens are a tinderbox right now.
Live to Lisa LaRocco literally has a wall of flames behind her.
Lisa?
Lisa?
Yes, we can hear you. What you're looking at right now is a live picture. It's about a half a mile away from where we are. It's just a wall of fire. It just stretches down probably, I'd say a good mile if you can look all the way down there.
Those conditions just created the potential for a conflagration in areas that hadn't burned in a long time.
It is just amazing, and it's always been a hard battle. When a small fire breaks out, the fire departments rush and try to put it out as quickly as they can, but as a result, there's an accumulation, and every once in a while, you get a real big fire.
The pumpers now trying to take on those flames right at Sunrise Highway.
Well, they have not labeled it under control right now.
Smoke is just suffocating out here, and the heat is absolutely, it's just so intense.
It's a wall of flame. There's a bunch of houses that are destroyed down there. I thought we were dead.
This steadily moving south as we speak?
Steadily moving south as we speak, yes, sir.
Fire got reported, and we just thought it was going to be another mutual aid fire until the first fire chief got on the scene, at which point his request to the Fire Communications Center was, give me everything you got. And we're talking about a fire department that was well versed in fighting brush fires. And to hear our fire chief make a request like that, we knew it was going to be a long day.
We spoke with some firefighters, and they said they have never seen anything like this before.
We've been in a lot of bad woods fires, but nothing like this. This was absolutely incredible.
It was an amazing fight, but no one had ever fought one before.
The clouds reached thousands of feet into the air. It looked like a volcanic eruption. It looked like Mount St. Helens.
It has actually moved farther southwest to us. It was swirling around almost to the east of us just a little while ago.
It not only reached Sunrise, it hopped over it with relative ease.
When it jumped at Sunrise Highway the first time, it was a little less than 2 hours into the incident. So the fire started up by Suffolk Community College up on Spiank Riverhead Road.
Just take a look at the flames springing up. In just the past 10 minutes, those flames have now spread due west, I would say at least 3/4 of a mile.
As a News 12 reporter covering the wildfires, the thick smoke and intense heat was overwhelming.
I was on Sunrise Highway right at the moment when the fire jumped Sunrise Highway. It literally went over me.
This fire is definitely becoming quickly out of control.
If I had not seen it firsthand, I would not have believed it. To see that fire jump Sunrise Highway, it was really frightening and amazing at the same time.
The firefighters are lined up along Sunrise Highway, almost like a wall of firefighters really waiting for this and to keep it at bay.
You have to remember this fire was traveling at about, they clocked it at about 650 feet an hour, which is actually pretty fast for a wildfire.
The wind is so strong blowing in this direction coming towards us.
Any major wildfire on Long Island typically travels from north-northwest to south-southeast, and they're wind-driven fires.
This is making national news and getting the attention of everyone from the White House on down.
Tonight in Suffolk County, New York, firefighters from Suffolk County and surrounding areas and other emergency workers are heroically fighting several dangerous fires that have forced the evacuation of hundreds of people, including residents of 2 nursing homes, among other facilities.
The Sunrise Highway area, you know, it's about 400 or 500 feet across from woods to wood. They tried to make a stand there. It was difficult because there was no water supply, so they had to bring water with them. But with the winds blowing as hard as they were and the fire spotting of embers blowing nearly a half a mile up over them. That defeated their attempts at success at stopping the fire there.
The firefighters had never seen anything like it. They were used to fighting what we call kitchen fires, and so they were ill-equipped to do this in the first place.
We had quite a bit of equipment there. There was about 265 pieces of fire equipment that were brought in on these mutual aids. About 175 of them were engines, your regular fire engines that just brought personnel and water to the scene. We also had about 45 brush trucks, or stump jumpers as we typically call them.
Heroes of the big blaze, the stump jumpers, the little trucks that could travel deep into the brush and tackle the fire from within.
I had the opportunity to travel with firefighters into some of the fire, the actual flames. While we're in the Pine Barrens, while they're burning and we're on the stump jumper, the smoke is a black, thick smoke. It's a heavy, stick-to-you type of smoke. It was like a tar almost. And there was one point where we were surrounded by fire and we couldn't get out.
So this type of fire can become a big problem very fast. That's why they have to go in.
The fire was in the canopies of these pitch pines, which go up. If you've ever seen a Christmas tree go on fire, that's what we were experiencing. It was almost like an explosion.
But as soon as they saw that burst of flames, everybody popped up.
The point at which it jumped the fire was just, I think everybody was amazed. We all believed that's where it was going to end, and that was not the end. That was not even halfway through.
I've been a volunteer fireman for 30 years, and I have never seen anything like this. This is incredible.
We're getting information now that since the fire is moving, they have to move the command center.
The response from across the island itself was just incredible. Throughout the term of the fire, we had over 3,000 fire, EMS, law enforcement, and support personnel responded to this event.
I'm here with Tom Webb from Middle Island, and he actually came from Rocky Point to come fight this fire.
With me now is Lieutenant Ray Dion from Coram Fire Department. Joining me is Chief John Bowe from the North Massapequa Fire Department.
All of New York State should be very proud of what's happened here on Long Island. The thousands of volunteer firefighters from Suffolk and Nassau County, the volunteers here at the Red Cross shelters.
I was a young firefighter, a volunteer in North Babylon. You know, what we refer to in the fire service when you have a real good brush fire, we call it an invitational. So the invitational started and we could just hear it going further west, and we knew we were going to be getting called.
We have a lot of fire trucks, probably hundreds of fire trucks on Sunrise Highway. They have to get all these trucks out of there because it looks like the flames could end up jumping over Sunrise Highway again.
We saw all this news footage about a new fire on Sunrise Highway, and me and my friend Mike, we looked at each other and said, you want to go out and give him a hand? I said, yeah, sure, let's go.
We got to Mastic and the train wouldn't go no more. We were between stations. So we got off the train and walked back to the station that we were just at and took a bus all the way here. And then a cop gave us a ride to the front lines. You gotta love the hustle of Eric Jimenez and Michael Blaylock.
Wow, 25 years ago. Some of the most amazing things that I had never seen and have yet to see ever again, where the leaves from the ground actually went up, and it was amazing but terrifying to find out that the fire's above us.
Just 150 feet high, and it went right through the truck and just kept on going.
It was very foreign to us. But again, you have to remember that while in many times during the fire, when you're actually in the woods fighting the fire, you have little to no visibility. Being familiar with the woods was a great advantage to the local firefighters, but the majority of the people that there had never been in those woods before.
We had a lot of departments there, all the way from New York City out to Montauk Point.
Virtually every volunteer fire department on Long Island and even a dozen companies from New York City sent help.
There's 109 fire departments in Suffolk County and almost every EMS agency in Suffolk County, as well as all of the 71 fire departments in Nassau County. New York City Fire Department was also they brought 10 agents out. We had a couple of other fire departments from Jersey and Connecticut that also came over to assist.
It was something that, of course, nobody's ever seen before around here. It was mind-boggling. It was a point where we didn't believe what we saw. And you go in the woods for 5 to 6 hours and come out and look in your rearview mirror to go get water or gas, and it looks like the fire was never even touched.
We knew there was danger, but not to the point that we thought we were in peril at that time.
Just breathing that air, picture being in a fire pit, and that's what you're breathing, and the woods hitting you, the embers are falling on you, the wind shifts direction. The wind shifts direction during fighting a fire like that could be potentially fatal.
Communication is becoming a problem, or has been a problem throughout the day. There are so many departments out here and only so many two-way channels to talk on.
The biggest challenge was communication and equipment.
Back then, fire departments each had their own radio frequencies and weren't able to communicate with each other.
What happened is everybody goes out there and we all have our own radio channels, and we're talking to only ourselves and not everybody that's on the fire ground.
2 blocks west of us is the original evacuation center. The high school, the West Hampton High School, had to be evacuated itself.
Margaret Langhorne was told to leave her West Hampton home, but marveled as volunteer firefighters put their lives on the line to stop the flames.
It was almost like the firemen had just dropped the dome over this area, and all the homes were still in one piece.
The areas that were evacuated were the southeast areas of Eastport, Spionk, West Hampton. Those immediate neighborhoods were all evacuated, and we set up shelters at Eastport High School and also West Hampton High School.
The state's youngest evacuee.
And that is?
Her name is Mariah. Her mom lives on, family lives on Old Country, just between Old Country Road and Montauk Highway. And she's 3 months old, and she doesn't even know she's been evacuated.
They did make some very, very successful defensive stands at the Hampton West Estates, the homes off Stewart Avenue.
What they are waiting for is air power to come to drop some rain down or water down on these things.
We're extremely confident if the wind stays down and we get all this water dropped on the fire from the planes tomorrow morning at first light, that at that point we should be in pretty good shape.
People coming in from upstate who fought forest fires in the Adirondacks and in the Catskills. We had people coming from Washington. We brought in aircraft that would dump water on the flames from above.
Right now we're deploying helicopters ranging in capacity from 250 gallons to 500 gallons, some really large air tankers that can drop up to 3,000 gallons at a time.
I just remember having such a sigh of relief when the C-130s finally arrived with the bucket brigades, and that's what finally was putting that fire out. And that's how serious it was. It wasn't something that they could handle just on the land. It had to be fought by the air.
We're looking to hit the hot spots with as much water as possible.
It was a big sigh of relief that finally they were making some headway.
Suffolk County Executive Robert Gaffney saying this fire is well on its way to being contained.
It really looks good. The smoke is not blowing sideways. What smoke there is coming straight up, which means the wind is down and the humidity's up in the evening. And they're getting a good handle, a very good handle on it.
Finally, things are getting better. I think the conditions are helping, the wind dying down a little bit.
The awesome effort, the 1,500 plus firefighters, the ground and air assault, the Chinook helicopters, dumping gallons of water, seeming to finally pay off. The areas down by the railroad tracks, when the fire headed towards the railroad tracks in West Hampton, down by Depot Road, in that area, a couple of structures caught fire there, but that's where they stopped the fire.
West Hampton wildfires are 100% contained.
There's no firefighter that responded to that didn't go home with scratches, bumps, bruises, or more.
About 10 structures were damaged. No lives were lost. We had approximately 49 firefighters that were treated for heat exhaustion, sprained ankles, minor injuries. But nothing serious.
Besides the flames and the fatigue, the volunteers say they will never forget their neighbors who dropped off truckloads of water and food for the firefighting army.
Time and time again, Long Islanders have proven that they are for each other during times of crisis. And the Pine Barrens fire was probably the first time I experienced that on such a large scale.
An older couple from Bay Shore came. They had driven all the way out there and they had made some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
What we've seen is just an outpouring of community support and spirit like I've never seen before.
Afterwards, the people turned around and they were so grateful that their houses were still standing.
Long Islanders are amazing and they take care of each other. And I saw that during the wildfires. I've seen it time and time again.
It's not unusual at this time of year to have a number of brush fires, especially given the weather and the dry conditions we've had lately.
The only conclusion you can come to is that there is some kind of human cause, whether on purpose or accidental.
Not deliberately so much as they discarded a cigarette that wasn't really out.
This is not the sort of Pine Barrens fire we're used to.
You couldn't believe it. That gigantic fire was caused by just someone carelessly tossing something or lighting a match.
2012, another fire scorched 1,100 acres in Manorville.
If you didn't have the resources, if you didn't have the personnel, you would have lost control of the fire.
There was a big gap between 1995 and 2012, and there was a lot of lessons learned in 1995. There's increased communications, better communications.
There's also improved training on how to fight brush fires.
We've also had a tremendous change in the type of fire equipment that was used. They're using larger trucks. They're designed a little bit differently now. Many more safety features have been included.
All led to a better result, and I think that we saw that in 2012.
It never entered our mind that you would lose a beautiful part of the island.
The public got way more familiar with the Pine Barrens as a result of the big fire.
I do think the wildfires brought attention to the Pine Barrens because of how unique they were and how environmentally sensitive they are and still are.
When I drive through the area, I can't see the scars from the old fire, but I know where they were. So when I drive through, I'm just saying, when's the next one?